to this. Darling, you're the one I want. Shiny things, but I'd marry you with paper rings. That's right. I hate accidents, except when we went from friends to this. That's right. Darling, you're the one I want.
So that's my way of trying to say get away. But small details that's meant to enjoy. When you're so focused on the destination, getting the goal, you can miss the small details that really enrich and enhance your life in ways that you didn't necessarily imagine. And when I ride, like if you're catching a bus or whatever, it's easier to take some time to look and enjoy the things that I can enjoy while I'm driving. And so that's what this journey that we have. The journey that we have, don't be so totally focused on the goal that you forget your why. You forget to enjoy everything that you're experiencing along the way, the people along the way. You get to experience the reawakening of yourself, to discover things that you like, things that you don't necessarily like, things that you can choose along the way that you didn't necessarily give yourself the grace and opportunity to do that. So this week, who I was a person, because one thing is to remain consistent. I play Duolingo every day because I don't want to miss my streak. I'm almost at a 2-year streak. I missed it a while ago. The previous week I was in the Diamond League and I was up in the top 10 semifinals. In 2 hours, I was like, oh yeah, I'm at number 5. I didn't have to focus on it again, right? Because I was so tired and I had been doing it all day. I'm like, if I keep playing Duolingo all day, I won't get to anything else. Totally true. So I was like, I want to do something else. I can't even remember what I did. But what I do remember is when I got back on Duolingo 2 hours and something later, I had dropped to number 11. Do you know how irritating that was? So I wanted to get to the top 10 so I can make it to the next step, right? Making it to the next step, I guess for me was just like, hey, I got this check along the way. However, some of the things that I was missing was, hey, I'm learning multiple languages. I'm learning Japanese. I'm freshening up on my French skills. Sometimes I'm not going to act like I'm. So learning German, Italian, I was looking at it, but sometimes I stop. And so no matter how long I took on trying to reach up the league, it didn't take away from the fact that I'm still learning these languages and that I'm getting better each day because I spend time on that. Doesn't have to be a lot of time, but I'm spending the time on it, right? So when I started focusing on getting there, I started losing sight of the fact that I'm still learning new languages, and I get to do it so I can enjoy it. So just because I didn't get to that goal, it doesn't mean I'm not successful in learning a new language, because whether I made it to the top 10, 12, top 3 of a league, I'm still meeting my ultimate goal, which is learning a new language, because I want to be able to communicate with other people. I want to be able to understand other people. So that top 10 spot was really just a bragging moment, but the real experience is in the time that I spent every day learning. Now, none of the time that I spent getting there was wasted. However, I lost sight of the fact that I'm still learning every day. And so that's some of the things that I really wanted to just hone in on. Like the goal is the goal, but the experience is so much greater in so many other aspects than the goal. So this week I was doing Duolingo, and then singing. At the church that I'm at, we sing on the choir every week, so I make sure I go to Bible study. Unless there's some things that's getting in the way, which might be like scheduling conflicts. And then some of the other things that I'm also focusing on is I do group workouts because I love like martial arts. So I've been doing boxing, and so been working out on Fridays consistently, unless the person's schedule doesn't allow that to happen, or my schedule doesn't allow it to happen, because some things are more important. So for me, it's still more important to be able to spend time with my daughter. So if there's things that she needs, I make sure she's taken care of. Taking care of her is taking care of me as well. So with that said, I hope you listened, and I hope I was able to share something that helped you out. And just a reminder that not meeting that specific goal doesn't mean it's a failure. It also can just mean that you're learning what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And then you can really continue to truly discover who you're being. Because for me, if I say I want to be healthy, then ask myself, am I spending time on being healthy, or am I spending time on doing things that's not considered healthy in my mind? And so that's where we are. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next week. Bye. So, konnichiwa, hello, and welcome to Freedom Fridays. I am Dr. Nikiba Jackson. Freedom Fridays is a channel that I created to talk about my journey of wellness as I release the weight of my past to free up my future. So this week, I've been talking about my journey for a couple of years. It started a few years ago when I was working with my coach in the mindset makeover. And during this time, I was challenged to journal about some of the things that I was dealing with as I was working towards my goal to get to 252 pounds. And I've had some successes, and I had some things that didn't work for me. So here I am today. Just want to get back into being who I am and continuing to share with you on my journey. So if you watched last week's Freedom Friday last week, I talked about being free to discover yourself. And so this week, I just want to come in and talk about what does it really mean to discover yourself. So this will be the freedom to be able to be who you are. So first of all, one of the things when you're focusing on discovering yourself, kind of like when you have this goal in mind, right? And the goal in mind is really based off the person that you say you want to be. And so the first thing I'll say is the goal the destination, or is the process of getting the goal who you want to be? And so, for instance, one of the goals that I had back then was to get to 252 pounds. I did not get to the 250 pounds. However, the person that I was being in the process was somebody who was focused on getting the goal. And honestly, the goal was never the 252 on the scale. The goal was always getting healthier so I can be able to live freely. And when I say live freely, it's like without pain, without things that hindered me from doing things that I actually wanted to do and like to do. For instance, when I was younger, I liked getting on roller coasters. And then like getting on a plane. So nothing stopped me from getting on a plane. But one of the things that I was looking at, it was like I didn't want to wear a seatbelt extender because I felt like that was bringing attention to myself that I didn't want. And it was bringing attention to me based off something that I perceived as negative. And then like on the roller coaster some years ago when I went overseas, and my sister and I was getting ready to get on a ride. The thought never crossed my mind, but we were getting ready to get on a ride, and I was pulled to the side, and the person pretty much measured us to see if we can get on the ride. And we were told that we couldn't. And so, it was a safety precaution. And so those were some of the things I felt like I kind of had those things out of my mind, and I was more focused on the getting to the 252, because in my mind, I believe getting to the 252 would allow me to be able to get on the rides and things like that. And so I started being a person that was focused on getting there as opposed to enjoying the journey. And so when I say that, enjoying the journey meant that I was able to get on a plane, get on several planes, and didn't need a seatbelt extender. I was able to go to amusement parks multiple times and didn't have to worry about whether or not I can fit on the rides or whether it would be a safety hazard, right? I was able to walk and just do different things without being in pain all day long or having to recover for a week. So those were some of the things along the journey, and I liked those. However, I felt like a failure because no matter what I was doing, no matter how much successes I was seeing, and the fact that I was this person that could do this, I felt like a failure because the 252 was not, I was not getting there. And so what I will say is, where I'm at now, I really had some time to really think about what was different then versus what's where I'm at today, right? And so one of the things that I say is, who was I being then, and how who I was then different from who I am being now. And so in my mind, the belief that I had to get to 252 to be able to do some of those things was not true. The reality is I had to take time on my health and wellness every day. And I did that. The way that I was doing it wasn't something that was going to be sustainable based upon the lifestyle that I was striving towards, because even though I was working from home on a regular basis, and I was living in a different country, I was able to fit in time to do some of those things. So some of the things that I don't care to do is plan. And that's not true on every aspect. So some things I don't like to plan. I don't like to always plan my workouts. I don't always like to plan the food that I'm going to eat. And a lot of people are very successful with meal prep. So what was working for me back then was I didn't have to worry about leaving out the house to go to work. And even when I was out the house to go to work, I had a level of flexibility that allowed me to flexibility and privacy that allowed me to be able to do some of the workouts that I was focusing on then. And then even with the eating, I had a house full of everything that I needed, so it was easier for me to be able to not plan my meals. And when it was time to eat breakfast, I would go in there and prepare my breakfast and then prepare my lunch. And that was the thing that was working for me. And so I never factored in the person that I'm being now. Is it going to shift as I move? So I would say kind of like with the budget. So you think about, like, when you have that goal in mind, the goal is just kind of a target, but it's not the definition of success, right? In some sense, because you can say, I want to save $3,000 for this trip somewhere, right? So your goal is the $3,000. But the thing is, once you get to the goal, you have a thing in mind that's attached to that goal. And so once you reach that goal, then you can move on. If you want to save another $3,000, you can do that. But if your goal was tied to a specific trip, you met the goal, you got the trip, you can move forward. So for me, when I had the goal of getting to 252, the goal was really tied to, once I get to 252, then I'll be able to do this. But 252 was never the ultimate goal. And in my mind, I couldn't perceive what did getting the 252 look like to me. I got down to in my 260s, and then my weight started going back up. And even as my weight was going back up, I was fighting against the going up, but I was still able to do some of the things that I felt like I couldn't do because I wasn't at my goal weight. So what I wanted to say, just I get to continue to shift my thinking in terms of pay attention to what your goals really are. And are your goals just markers along the way, or is it something else that's tied to that goal that hinders your way of thinking and hinders what you're doing? So once again, when I tied the goal to being healthy, it was never once you're 252, you're healthy and you can be able to travel freely, because I didn't get there, and I was able to travel freely. I was able to do some of the things that I wanted to do. I mean, I left out the country, traveling with my daughter, able to get on rides, fly on planes without worrying about certain things. And so now that goal felt so unattainable because the person that I was being is not the person that I actually saw myself as. And so so shifting the way that I'm thinking, when you're discovering who you are, take some time to see what you spend your time on doing. And what you spend your time on doing has a big impact on who you are, because you can say I want to be a doctor, right? Um, you can say you want to be a doctor. So what's the way to become a doctor? You have to do research in terms of finding like, hey, what kind of doctor I want to be. You can get to your why. Why do you want to be a doctor, right? And then what kind of doctor you want to be, and then you look into what does it take to get to being that doctor, and then you take the steps to become a doctor, right? And so in the process, you're learning, you're growing, and then your ultimate goal is, hey, once you become a doctor, you're a doctor. But in the steps of getting there, you're doing the work, meaning you're doing the training that's associated with it. You're learning along the way. And so even like the classes and different things that you might take, some might not work out exactly the way that you plan, but your ultimate goal is to become. So because that's what you really want to do, you keep moving forward regardless of what's perceived as setbacks, regardless of the length of time that it takes. Now, part of your goal might be, I want to become a doctor by the year 2026 or something like that, or whatever you fill in the year. And so you still get to focus on, hey, if I want to become a doctor, what are some of the things that I do along the way? So it matches with who I say I want to be. And then consider, what does that mean? Like look in your mind and figure out, what does that mean? What is it different about then versus now? So it might be because you want to, depending on what type of doctor you want to be, you might feel like you need the accolades. If it's like a doctor like myself, organizational leadership, based off some of the things that I want to do. But if you want to be like a medical doctor, you have to get the credentials, and you can go through all the school, but you still end up having to take, do residencies. You have to do different things that allow you to be able to practice. So do you want to be a doctor just so you can have a title, or do you want to do it so you can practice? In the process of doing all those things, you still get to work on it. And so you don't just wake up and become a doctor. You go through it through a series of what you do. So back to me and my wellness journey. I want to be a person that's healthy. And so I have to ask myself, like, have I been spending a lot of time on things that's contributing to my health and well-being? And so health and well-being is not just the weight on a scale. It's not just the way your clothes fit. It's not just how often you go to the gym. It's not just whether you take medicine or not, whether you can get on a ride. Health and well-being is the entire body. When you take care of one aspect of yourself and you compartmentalize it and don't allow yourself to see the entire picture, sometimes you can lose focus, and life has a way of showing you when you're off balance. So for me, yes, I was focused on the number on the scale. However, some of the things that I got to enjoy along the way was traveling more. I got to visit my family a couple of times. You know, I had lost some loved ones along the way, and I was blessed to be able to see them, not knowing that those would be my last times to see them. And when I look back on it, I don't think about, hey, I was this way. I think about, hey, I was enjoying this time. And so the reality of it is, if you say you want to be something and you want to be wherever you say it is, it's more than about just reaching a particular goal. Unless that goal is like, once I get that goal, then that's done. What are you going to do after the goal? So live life in the moment means give yourself less restrictions in terms of, I can't do this until then. I can't speak until I lose 50 pounds. I can't do this until I do this. Find ways to do those things that you feel like you need to wait until you get that goal. So by the time you get to that particular goal, you've already been in practice of success, and you know what that looks like. You know, when I was younger, me and my family, like it was my aunts and my uncles or my cousins, and then even me and my siblings, we would practice like we were singing. Like we used to stand outside of my grandma's house and sing, you know, like we were on I think Star Search or something like that. And we just knew we were singers because we did what we did and we practiced along the way. I can remember being younger, I think over the summertime, we used to have these moments where we were students and teachers, and people did things, and then you can see where their life is. And it's like, hey, we've always been in practice for those things. So you didn't wait until you got there. You did things along the way to be able to experience it, right? And so this past week, some of the things that I've been focusing more on is, what am I eating on a regular basis? And are those things that I'm eating on a regular basis working towards my health and wellness goals? And is it something that I'm going to be able to sustain over a period of time, right? And so instead of focusing solely on what I'm eating, I realized that ended up being like a task, because sometimes the things that I wanted wasn't always available for me going shopping. It was just a different experience. So some of the things I focused on was, hey, eat. So like I started off with making sure I have breakfast. And so days when I'm like, hey, breakfast is not prepared at home, I always have my breakfast at work. So no matter what, I have that available for me. Lunch has been one of those things. It's like, yeah, I get to work on preparing lunch, and dinner is something that I enjoy with my daughter. And so it wasn't always the time where you sit down and enjoy eating the dinner. And so those are some of the things that I want to focus on more within the next week. One of the things that really was working for us specifically, my daughter, she has some goals that she has of her own. And so she started this thing. We went on this trip Saturday, and she was like, Mom, I want to go to the gym when we come back. So these trips, we usually come back a little later. And I was like, okay, well, we can go here when you come back. Honestly, when we got back, it wasn't late. It was earlier in the day. So we drove home, which is about 15, 20 minutes away. And then we got back. As soon as we got home, she was like, Mom, I told you I wanted to work out. I was like, why didn't you say that while we were there? And the reality of it was, I was trying to make an excuse to not go because it would have been so easier to not go. However, I'm like, she has goals and I have goals too. And I want to be supportive not only of her, but of myself as well. Because there's times I'm working out at home and I'm alone, and I'm like, it doesn't matter who's working out with you. As long as you say that's what you want to do, you do it. So we got up, we got home, we dressed, and we did it. And then the next day we got up, and we had that goal in mind. And so she has her workout plan for herself. I have mine worked out for myself, and we got in there, we got in the gym, and we worked through our circuits, and it was really a good time. And then also to the point of, we did another workout, and then certain areas weren't available, and so we swim. And those are the moments, like when I look back, when I get to a particular weight, I'm going to look back and remember the memories of the time that I spent with my daughter. She's going to remember those times, right? And it gets less important about, hey, I made it to this weight, but it gets more important with the journey that I take along the way. So I just want to just share with you, like I said, last week I talked about being free to discover yourself. This week is really more so about being free to really take time to see what's important to you, to learn how to enjoy the journey along the way. When you're so focused on getting to a goal, sometimes you can, like this, and I'll stop with this. It's like driving, right? Driving here has been a journey in terms of, well, driving anywhere. So like if I like to look at the outside, I like to look at the nature sometimes, and then I like to look at the sights around me. However, when I'm driving, it's hard to focus on the little details that I see along the way. I can easily miss it because I'm focused on, hey, I got to get to this place. So when I'm so focused on the fact that I got to get to this place, I can't really enjoy the fact that, hey, I'm in this country. Hey, look at the roads. Look at all this other stuff that's along the way. Oh, look at the trees. Look at the clouds. Look at how the sun comes out. Look at the moon. Look at the lights that's going across the sky. Oh, look at this person walking. Look at them. Just things that's small details bye.